But I do think that most CMOs tell me today that they no longer want to send their data out. They just don't trust that the information that they collect, that's precious information that a consumer is willing to give to the brand. They just don't want to risk that. They don't want to compromise anything. And so as a result, it sort of inevitably gets into like, okay, well then how can you protect that first party data, but still enable effective marketing?
Welcome to the Marketing Rapport, a podcast created for and by marketing professionals who seek to better understand their consumers and design unique, personalized experiences that stand out in today's market. In each episode, hosts from Verisk Marketing Solutions connect you to industry thought leaders, practitioners, and experts focused on improving B2C experiences through powerful data-driven insights. It's about how we connect with our consumers and where we can partner together to do it better. This is the Marketing Rapport.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Marketing Rapport podcast. I'm Tim Finnigan, and I run product marketing for Verisk Marketing Solutions, where we're totally involved in data and analytics, consumer insights, personalization. And before I introduce my guests, I do have an announcement. So based on all our 2024 podcasts, I came up with what's called, I'm arguing with marketing for this one, but I call it the human-centered marketing playbook, where we take all these inputs from our previous podcast guests and we created this ebook about essential strategies for personalization, privacy, and building authentic connections. And the three main sections are defining identity in modern marketing, democratizing data, balancing transparency and personalization. And I think where we needed today's guest, Lauren Wetzel, is talking about data collaboration and building a privacy-first future. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Lauren.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tim. We're going to get into it and it'll be fun.
Before we get into it, I want to give everyone, people are always like, how do you get these great guests? I'm like, and I'm going to tell the story how I got this great guest. So Lauren spoke at SIM East, which is the Coalition of Innovative Media Measurement in New York. And she spoke on the same panel as my boss, Zora. And they talked about data quality, collaboration, and converged TV. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I really want Lauren on the podcast. So I waited. I'm like, let's go to the lunch line together. And I laid a message. I'm like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And you were gracious enough to say yes. So thank you for doing this. So let's get right to it, Lauren. So I know all these podcasts I listen to a ton, they want to, they're like, hey, tell me what you do. I want to do it a little differently, Lauren. When you're home for Christmas and family and friends ask you what you do for a living, what do you tell them?
That is a much better way to ask the question. And I love that. Typically, I say I work in technology. That's sort of the easiest entree into what I do and into sort of the arena that I've been in. And then I say I work in technology that really is helping businesses do better with data privacy and be better with data privacy and maintain control of data that they may collect from you. And so typically, if I don't get a lot of head nods or I don't get sort of the full acknowledgement of, oh, that makes sense, or yeah, I care about privacy, I typically get a lot of feedback or commentary on like, I swear my social app is listening to me. And so there's a handful of things there. But I'll often say, is there sort of a store that you like to shop at? And I'll use an example for myself. I'll say, I really like to shop a lot at Sephora, buy beauty products, makeup products. I, have a loyalty program with there, and I'm very comfortable sharing my email address so that every time I go to check out and I want either the discount or to use my loyalty points, sort of, they know that. They know me by phone number. They know me by email. It's really important that Sephora protects that data. It's really important that this retailer that I trust, that I want to work with, and that I enjoy as a consumer is not handing over, lauren.wetzel@gmail.com to sort of the industry. And so we provide technology that ensures that end-to-end privacy protection. And then typically, because it's relating it back to something that people either enjoy or like, Netflix is another really good example I use, like, oh, do you have a Netflix subscription? And it just kind of all goes in an understanding direction from there.
So Lauren, as CEO at InfoSum, tell me a little bit about like what you're worried about on a daily basis, sort of from a strategy and then an execution piece.
Sure. What worries me is that the industry isn't moving fast enough towards embracing privacy enhancing technology, that this industry has operated in a way where data needed in order to power, say, a data-driven marketing campaign, a addressable television campaign to create richer consumer experiences, that data used to be commingled, centralized, matched together and sort of stored together. And what keeps me up at night is that while there's technology that allows every data owner to keep control of their data, and we kind of call it decentralized data collaboration, and that's a new way of working where privacy and performance are no longer trade-offs, I get very concerned that we're not moving fast enough away from the legacy way of working, but also that we're talking a lot about privacy and we're putting the label of privacy on those old ways of working, where the underlying technology still commingles the data, where you still need to rely and trust the vendor who's controlling that data. And again, to take it back to that consumer story that I use with family and friends, where consumers don't know those entities. Like, they don't know the sort of legacy companies, intermediaries, ad tech vendors. Like, there's not sort of an awareness of who they are. They have an awareness of the relationship that they have with that controller of the data, in the example I gave, Sephora. And so I think it's the responsibility of, frankly, me and my role as CEO at InfoSum to educate on a new way of working, to educate brands and media owners and data providers that you don't have to sacrifice performance to achieve privacy compliance, to make privacy more of a CEO agenda and not just a chief privacy officer agenda or a compliance team agenda or a legal team agenda. And so those are the things I think about. I think about how to educate on the technology, because the good news is that I've seen this technology be incredibly performant. I've seen you be able to ensure that end-to-end privacy protection, but still drive value for your business. Oftentimes that's value in terms of new, really great innovative ad products that drive revenue, ad products then as a brand that you enjoy buying, that gives you a greater return on investment, better, richer consumer experiences. And so these just don't need to be trade-offs. You can have that great marketing performance, but you can do so without any risk or compromising of consumer privacy.
Okay, I want to make sure the team editing this gets that what Lauren just said. That was great what you said about privacy, but I wanted to go back when you said the term privacy enhancing technology, right? I've heard you use that instead of data clean rooms. Is data clean rooms more just a lazy man's way of saying this than what it really is, or what it is? Or is data clean rooms just the overarching, sort of word for different parts of this?
Yeah, great question. Data clean rooms is the category that, many across our industry has sort of used to categorize the technology of privacy safe data collaboration. Now, the origin of data clean rooms actually was within Google for Ads Data Hub, which was a clean room that really was all about connecting into Google's data set for better measurement. And so that's sort of the initial use cases, and it's evolved from there. And that concept is it's a protected environment where you can share insights, but you're not handing over control of your data. Now, what has been happening within the category is you start to see, these adopters that say, I'm a data clean room, and it's really just a label. Mm-hmm. They say that they're a data clean room, but what makes a data clean room a true data clean room is that it needs to be a platform that's designed to facilitate collaboration without compromising control over your data and end-to-end privacy protection. And so you end up seeing this sort of, marketecture or Lumascape that has a lot of different logos in the data clean room category, where, I look at it and I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. And so for me, I'm fine if we use the term data clean room, but a data clean room has to have privacy by default, meaning it's a technology that always was built with privacy in mind. You can't just layer on privacy as a feature. It has to be neutral. So you're not also selling data. You're not also a data marketplace. You're not also selling infrastructure data storage. It needs to be decentralized, which is what enables you to maintain control. And you do, to your original question on pets, which is a term that I use, there needs to be privacy enhancing technology, which take away sort of even marketing and advertising. Privacy enhancing technology applies into healthcare, applies into financial services, a lot of different verticals and industries, government. You could go to a pet conference and see no one from the marketing ad tech media industry because it is a category. And for a data clean room to be a data clean room, it needs to have and deploy some of those different privacy enhancing technologies. And I see a lot of data clean rooms audience, I'm using air quotes, where they don't even have privacy enhancing technologies embedded within them.
So, Lauren, you mentioned sort of the conferences, the pet conference, and I know you go to a ton of different conferences and speak at there. So, what are some topics that come up, like when they ask you questions? Is it around data collaboration? Is it more data quality, data privacy? What are some of these real life questions that people are struggling with?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. There is on data privacy, I would say more so in Europe and Australia, where the questions are around what can I do, to be compliant because there's, a widespread regulation. I find in the US, the questions are all around, okay, if legacy identifiers aren't here and I'm turning to first party data, what's the right strategy? What can I do with that first party data? How do I protect that first party data? I only have a little bit of first party data. Is that enough? Like the notion that, you can only utilize data collaboration if you're data rich, when that's just not true. You can have a small slice of the pie. And the beauty of, companies like InfoSum is, we were named as the sum is greater than the parts. And it is about pulling together partners who fill the gaps in a 360 understanding of your consumer. It's about, pushing collaboration forward. If only you have, a small semblance of knowledge on your customer, you don't have to have the whole picture so long as you have protected collaboration technology. So I would say those are more of the questions, like this intrigue around first party data, how does this apply? And I often talk a lot about my greatest clients are those who have adopted the technology and launched new products in market. And so they have effectively enabled what I love to call private data networks. And that's really what this is about. A private data network is you and your trusted partners all maintaining control of your data, but achieving really great, effective use cases on the other side, insights to enrich an audience, activating a campaign across channels, whether walled gardens or, the open internet. It's about measuring the effectiveness of those campaigns. And so I find that, as the other categories of retail media and commerce media and travel networks and sports networks continue to be in vogue topics at the conferences, like underpinning all of that is data collaboration. Underpinning all of that needs to be privacy enhancing technology. And so I find that we just fit in really nicely at these different conferences with sort of the different hot topics in the space right now.
Well, Lauren, speaking of hot topics, AI, how are you thinking about AI from a data privacy standpoint?
It's a great question. If we think the sort of need of privacy enhancing technology and a new way of collaborating with data really was necessary because in the advertising world, we just got it wrong, meaning we were a little bit careless with data. We shared it around. Again, consumers don't know the intermediaries who have access to data. It gets stored in places it shouldn't get stored. There's a lot of things that compromised it. Imagine, you and I as consumers utilizing AI tooling, which is fantastic, by the way, and I really genuinely embrace it and try and make it a habit to educate myself on the new tooling that's out there. But imagine the fear of, putting more data, which is sort of fuel for these models, and not protecting that data. And so I do think that, privacy enhancing technology is going to play a critical role. And we are, looking at different R&D projects and sort of testing routes to prove that there are things that also help us and our clients utilize our platform more effectively. And so that's everything like any technology scale up where documentation and how-to guides are created more effectively. That could be, what we call question to query, which is how can you, better use AI to interrogate a data set that's protected within a data clean room and sort of, get results on the other side. And AI has a great application there. There's everything that you do in leading a business as CEO and looking for efficiencies or ways to operate faster. And I think with all of those things, you have to do so with your own principles, your own standards, and be very careful about sort of what you adopt and what you embrace. And you need to have your own policies around the tooling that's out there. But I think the greatest application for us and sort of for the industry is how do you enable that protection of those models? How do you enable that protection of the data as it sort of moves across models? And I think there's a role that we can play there.
And Lauren, that's a great answer. I just want to comment a little on it. In the beginning, I talked about this playbook that we created from 2024, and I want to title it the Human-Centered Marketing Playbook, because I get a lot of the same answers where AI is great, we need to use it, but we still need to have that human element. I had that, head of agency, someone like you that's in the technology space, that we've got other data providers. So I'm interested to see what happens next with using sort of that human-centric. So in your last answer, I'm my mind is like, I've got 5 questions based on everything you say, but let's talk about first-party data for a second.
Yep.
What's on the marketer's mind right now when it comes to first-party data?
I think they know how critical it is. It can be someone's biggest asset if they have the right strategy around it. And so I do think that a marketer is asking, how do I get first-party data? I think there's also a nervousness around it because I think we've seen some examples where whether that's a security breach, whether that's an issue with privacy, whether it's actually finally seeing some enforcement on the regulation that's out there, whether under the GDPR in Europe or, CCPA in California, I think a marketer is really trying to balance that. What data do I collect? How do I manage that? Thinking about consent. And then thinking about, how do I sort of put that data, into action to sort of drive better experiences, to drive more effective campaigns. But I do think that most CMOs tell me today that they no longer want to send their data out. They just don't trust that the information that they collect, that's precious information that a consumer is willing to give to the brand. They just don't want to risk that. They don't want to compromise anything. And so as a result, it sort of inevitably gets into like, okay, well then how can you protect that first party data, but still enable effective marketing, but still enable insights to come about, still enable collaborations and partnerships, which is obviously that's sort of just like a Tuesday for us to sort of tackle that. But I do think there's a nervousness. I think that's definitely something I see, but also a good, healthy amount of curiosity, asking more of those technical questions. I think a marketer needs to be more technically savvy, more legally savvy, more privacy savvy than they've ever had to be, just as the same time that a marketer needs to be more financially savvy than they've ever had to be. We see marketing budgets get cut all the time, and sort of forecasts come down. CFOs getting closer to CMOs on ensuring that every dollar spent has some performance tied to it. And so, I think that's a lot on a marketer's plate. So to empathize, I think, the more that you educate on, how you can feel confident in collecting that first party data, how you can feel confident in the relationship that you have with your trusted consumer, how do you feel confident in end-to-end privacy protection and not look at the next regulation or sort of compliance threat as, some sort of stringent threat, but as, something that you're not concerned because you future-proofed your first-party data and your data collaboration strategy. It's all about how do we get them as comfortable as possible, knowing that at the end of it, first-party data can deliver the best consumer experiences. It can deliver better, more effective advertising. And I think, doing what's good for the consumer, is great, so long as you're also not putting any risk out there to their data.
Right. And I mean, data collaboration almost like empowers businesses to use that first party data to get excited
Completely.
about it and to do it. So I've sort of picked up what you said prior is that there could be a little confusion in the marketplace on sort of these legacy solutions versus innovation. How do you straddle both those, those terms, legacy and innovation?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's sort of two dimensions of it. There is just education, being as clear as possible, and that's education not only direct to prospects and clients who are more familiar. Obviously, everyone's more familiar with legacy technology, and to be equipped to educate on what it used to be and what our technology does is important. But it's also education on standards with, organizations like IAB Tech Lab and sort of any of the analysts, who will spend time and listen and really make sure that it's clear what the technology needs to be, what's sort of happening with the data, what's happening as it relates to some of the regulations that exist out there. And the second is just to prove it. Like, the easiest thing we can do is deliver, the results from a case study, because I think that no matter what is what piques the interest of someone to then listen to the first point on education. And so we're always talking about the number of, campaigns that we've run and effectiveness of those campaigns and the value that you can get. And again, it's different because every collaboration is different. Every product that's launched using our technology is different, but we are just seeing greater performance than the performance that we see with legacy technology companies. And we're definitely seeing the performance related to utilizing first-party data that's protected by data collaboration platforms like us, in contrast to cookies. And so easier to get attention when you just sort of say, well, we had a food delivery company and a broadcaster run a campaign and it was 63% increase in brand awareness. And we saw 20% uplift in app downloads. And we saw a bank suppress the audience so that they could actually really reach people who, had creditworthiness for a mortgage. Like, there's so many numbers of flavors of that, but it's got to be metrics based. We've got to be clear on how you're also optimizing on costs, how you can do this efficiently. It's important that they're aware of speed. Like, this innovative technology puts you in control, which is great for privacy, but puts you in control, which is great for speed, where you can get instantaneous match rates and you can get through security and privacy and compliance much faster. And we love the stat that on average, we are allowing our clients to collaborate 156 days faster than legacy platforms. We've done sort of the measurement over and over. My first introduction to InfoSum is I was a client of those legacy technologies. So I had a front row seat of paying for them, which were expensive, and feeling stressed as to, like, is this going to be compliant tomorrow? And also, really feeling that things were stalled and slow when you're not in control and when you're not utilizing decentralized technology. And so it's been amazing to see some of those stats, leading InfoSum into the new era of private and secure data collaboration.
Now, Lauren, is there any correlation between you becoming CEO and then results improving 156? You don't even have to answer it. Don't even answer it. We're going to say it's yes.
I love that.
Okay. How about this? Is there anything you're working on right now that marketers will be interested in learning about or excited about that you've got coming down the pike?
Yes, there is. And it's funny because I call it like the sexiest unsexy sort of launch of something. And what I mean by that is there is, in the legacy way of working, so much work that goes into the legal conversations once you are utilizing a platform for data collaboration, and then you want to partner with someone to run a collaboration. So say you want to do sort of a measurement use case, measure some incrementality. And so you're going to get going with someone who has transaction level data or impression level data. And to do that collaboration with those two partners typically could take months just going through legals between the two companies. And so recognizing that and recognizing that our technology is different in terms of what's happening with the data And you sort of know that when you're signing up for the platform terms and you get educated on that. But then people were still rinse and repeating the same process with legal and with sort of putting a DSA in place for collaboration. So we launched something at the start of this year that's been live actually in market in the UK, will be live in the US by the end of the quarter. It's called Contractless Collaboration, very clever name. And it's about signing up when you sign to our platform terms. It's an integrated DSA as a part of that sort of one-step process. And it handles, all of what you would normally handle later when you're making that collaboration. And what it's doing for our clients is it's creating an ecosystem where everyone's ready to collaborate if you've already signed that integrated DSI. And so it's taking out this work that happens downstream and pulling it upstream while you're educating on the nuances of the technology, while everyone's accepting platform terms and understanding, how we're protecting the data and what's happening to the data and what use cases could be applied utilizing this technology. And we found that it's not delaying sort of our sort of sales cycle, or it's not stalling our deals from closing, but it's absolutely also, and maybe more importantly, it's just allowing everyone to collaborate much faster. And so it gets back to that speed when you handle legals in a more effective way, again, which seems unsexy. It's not like a button I'm telling everyone to press. It's not, sort of a new widget as a part of technology, but I actually think it's really, really critical to effective and fast data collaboration. So the market feedback's been incredible. I mean, again, we're not live in the US, but all of my US clients and prospects and partners are sort of tapping their foot like, get there soon. And we're excited for when we do that.
I like what you just said, what you said about sort of like this unsexy development or innovation. Like at VMS, we have a ton of those where our clients get more excited than the marketplace because they understand and there's little pieces to it and it's just improving it. And that's what came out of this whole, you had mentioned consent, the one-to-one consent. We had to improve our product to sort of get to this regulated, mandated one-to-one consent. Turns out it didn't happen, but we still made those great improvements. So it's sort of this back and forth.
That's exactly right.
As we wrap this up, Lauren, I know you were just in Australia for 2 weeks. Any fun? What's the difference between business there and coming back to the US? Is it similar, same, different?
Well, as you and I started on this call, it's absolutely freezing in New York right now. So just the difference in climate is the welcome reprieve. So I would say that's different. Australians are incredible. I think there's so much pride in Australians being from Australia, which is incredible. And obviously at a time where our country is like somewhat divided, it's actually really refreshing to see just such a unified front and that sort of patriotism. And they're just a lot of fun. So it's a work hard, play hard environment in much better climate.
And you're exhausted when you came back. So where are you going to be? Are you going to be at any conferences coming up?
So actually Marketecture, so Ari Paparo's, new media business, I hope I categorized that correctly for Ari, which is like Ad Tech God and sort of Jeremy Bloom and a handful of others who kind of have all become a part of Marketecture. They are doing their first conference in a week. And so I'm really excited. I will get to interview the COO of Group M, who is a fabulous client. And we are going to talk a lot about data collaboration and other things. And they have a handful of other topics that I'm excited about. But this is the very first conference. And so there's plenty of conferences that I attend on a regular basis, like Clockwork, like CES, obviously at the start of the year, and obviously where we met at SIM, both being members. But I'm actually really excited because it's a brand new conference. So that should be exciting.
And I know it's become an old hat with you speaking, but you still get nervous right before you get on stage, or
what? Yeah, nerves are great. Pressure is a privilege, which is the sort of mantra I tell myself when I do get nervous is just, if there's ever a day where I'm just not nervous, then that's probably the day that I'm more concerned for me. I just always I feel the privilege and the pressure of, educating this market, representing my clients, representing employees who are very purpose-driven, very mission-driven, to, change the way that, data has been managed and used for collaboration, to stand for consumer privacy, which is a human right. People often forget that, but it is indeed a human right. And so, that pressure on your shoulders, like when you're about to walk on stage, you're about to tune into a podcast, like, yeah, it makes you a little nervous because you want to do your best job. But that's sort of the way that you calm yourself down, which is like, as long as you try your best and do your best, that's all anyone can ask of anyone. So.
Perfect answer, Lauren. So let's end with this. So how do listeners find out more about Lauren Wetzel and more about InfoSum?
Oh my gosh. Please follow us on LinkedIn. We're hilarious. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow InfoSum on LinkedIn. Our incredible leader of our marketing team just puts out the best content. And so we're constantly educating, obviously, the InfoSum website. You can also catch me on X. I tend to dive into conversations and sort of challenge the industry a bit on that platform. And so I can be a fresh face on that platform. I'll say nothing else, but yeah, I would say that. And then we also have a podcast, which Tim, I'd love for you or someone on your team to be on as well, which is called Identity Architects. So doing similar things to what you're doing here, and interviewing people who have been architecting and championing identity solutions and marketing solutions in our space. So always a good time there.
Let's just get a time right now. I'm all about branding myself. I don't want anybody in my company coming on. So Lauren,
it's only you.
Yep. Lauren, thank you so much. You were great. So you guys go to InfoSum if you want to have a good laugh. Go to follow InfoSum on LinkedIn. If you want to hear someone that's a challenger, go on X and follow Lauren Wetzel. Lauren, thanks for joining today.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Marketing Report. This show is brought to you by Verisk Marketing Solutions, an organization created to help CMOs and their partners improve the reach, timing, relevance, and compliance of every consumer engagement. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the Marketing Report wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the show notes for more information.